It was just past sunset when Marcus pulled off the two-lane road and into the gravel lot, beside a small, worn-down bar sitting quietly on the edge of town. The kind of place most people drive past without noticing. No bright signs, no loud music. Just a wooden building with a crooked open sign in the window and the low buzz of old lights flickering behind dusty glass. Marcus turned off the engine, letting the silence settle before stepping out of his truck. His boots hit the ground with a soft crunch. He stood there for a second, breathing in the cool air like he needed a minute to get used to being home again. He hadn't been back long, maybe a week, not long enough for things to feel normal again, but enough to know that he needed a break. Marcus wasn't looking for much, just a glass of water, maybe a seat in the corner, and a little quiet. The noise of deployment was still ringing in the back of his head, the kind of noise that doesn't go away just because you're out of uniform. He still walked like someone who had to be alert, still scanned rooms without thinking. Even now, his eyes checked the parking lot out of habit before he went in. Inside, the bar was dim, with a few scattered tables and a couple of folks talking low over drinks. A jukebox in the corner played a slow country song from decades ago. Nothing felt rushed. The bartender nodded without saying much. Nobody paid much attention to Marcus, which was exactly what he wanted. He found a seat near the back, a corner, where he could see the room, but still feel like he wasn't in it. That's how he liked it. He wore plain clothes, not his full uniform, but something about the way he sat, the way he carried himself, made it clear he wasn't just passing through. Marcus looked like someone who had seen a lot and wasn't interested in showing it off. He didn't pull out a phone, didn't try to start a conversation. He just sat there with a glass of water, staring through the room like his thoughts were somewhere far away, maybe with his sister, maybe with his nephew who had been asking when Uncle Marcus was coming home, maybe with the meals he missed, the smells of his mother's kitchen, or the old TV shows he used to watch when the world felt simpler. This part of town hadn't changed much. Still quiet, still slow. The kind of place where people nod at each other from a distance, but don't ask too many questions. And that was just fine with Marcus. He wasn't ready for big reunions or deep talks. Tonight, all he wanted was stillness. Something steady beneath his feet. What he didn't know was that this calm, quiet night was about to turn into something else entirely. The bar had a steady rhythm to it, like a song you didn't need to know the words to. A few people were scattered around some leaning over pool tables. Others hunched on stools at the counter, quietly sipping their drinks. Nobody stood out, and that's what made it comfortable. It was the kind of place where people didn't talk unless they had something real to say. The air smelled like old wood and fried food, and the walls were covered in faded photos and dusty license plates that had probably been there longer than some of the regulars. Marcus didn't mind it. In fact, he preferred it that way. No surprises, no noise, just a quiet spot to breathe. He sat at the same table he always picked when he came here before deployment. It was tucked away, far from the doors and windows, but gave him a clear view of the room that mattered to him, not because he was expecting trouble, but because being able to see everything helped him relax. Old habits die hard. His glass of water sweated onto the wooden table as he looked around, without staring, his face calm, unreadable. The jukebox in the corner played a slow Johnny Cash song, low enough that it blended with the soft clink of glasses and the shuffle of boots on the floor. Marcus didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Just being there, stayed still, shoulders relaxed but posture straight. He gave off the kind of presence that people notice without knowing why. Some folks glanced his way, but nobody stared. That was good. That's how he wanted it. He wasn't dressed to stand out, just a gray shirt, jeans, and a pair of running shoes that had seen better days. Nothing flashy. Still, there was something about him that didn't quite blend and die in his head. He was somewhere else. He thought about his mom, probably cooking something warm back home. He thought about his brother's kids, about the way they'd tackle him the second he walked through the door. He smiled to himself for a second, but didn't let it linger. It had been a long road home, and even though the danger was behind him, something in him hadn't fully come back yet. That's what this night was supposed to be, a moment to breathe, to sit in a place where nobody needed anything from him. But the peace wasn't going to last. Something was coming, not loud at first, but steady, like a train in the distance. And Marcus, even in his quiet, could already feel it. You're settled in and almost drift into the quiet when the door swings open. A group of 6 bike riders storms in. their boots thudding heavy on the floor. They laugh loud, the kind of laugh that fills the whole room and makes other people go quiet. They wear dark jackets with patches, jeans, tattoos showing where the sleeves stop. One of them, a tall guy with a black bandana and a thick beard, spots Marcus in the corner and smirks. They swagger over, voices low but mocking. You can feel the shift everyone notices. The music seems to hang in the air all of a sudden. One of the bikers nudges the tall guy and nods toward Marcus's seat. They step closer, boots tapping, jackets brushing the backs of chairs. The tall man leans in. He says something like, "Nice clothes, dude. Coming straight from the movies?" His voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the calm. Marcus doesn't flinch. He answers slow, quiet. "Just needed a drink." The tall guy sneers and laughs with the others, loud enough now that glass rattles at the bar. People around them glance over, eyes darting between Marcus and the group. One biker leans hard on the table, cracking the wood edge, and says, "You in some kind of show, army stuff, or just want to play soldier?" His voice dares Marcus to care, but Marcus stays still. He looks at the biker straight in the eye and just nods. He doesn't say more, but his calm makes the biker poke harder. These bikers are moving in close, circling like they own the place. They whisper and laugh. Some regulars shift uneasily, but nobody steps in. The bartender wipes a glass, watching. Marcus sits tall, not raising his voice, but the air around him stiffens. You get it, something's about to happen. The laughter fades a bit. Marcus looks past the bikers at the rest of the bar. Doesn't smile, doesn't grow angry, just keeps breathing steady. The tension grows. Something in the room changed. What began as a night of quiet and peace is now poised on the edge of action, and Marcus knows it. The noise wasn't loud yet, but it carried weight. One of the bikers stepped closer to Marcus's table, a smirk playing on his face like he already knew how this would go. He leaned in just enough to make his presence felt and said, "That uniform real, or just something you found at a costume shop?" His voice was mocking, casual on the surface, but there was something bitter underneath. A few of the other bikers chuckled, watching closely to see how Marcus would react. Marcus looked up, calm but alert. His face didn't change much. He didn't snap back, didn't look scared either. He just said, "It's mine." Simple, quiet, honest. But the tall one wasn't finished. "Funny," he said, "don't look like any soldier I've seen. You're missing boots, or maybe you just like playing dress up for free drinks." More laughter followed, louder this time, and a few people at the bar shifted in their seats. You could feel that things were heating up. Marcus still didn't raise his voice. "I don't need free drinks," he said. "I'm just here to sit." His voice was steady, not tired, just done with the game. But the biker didn't like that. He stepped even closer, his eyes narrowing. "Where's your dog tags? Your boots? You even know how to salute?" His breath was close now, and the air between them had gone tight. The others behind him were grinning, feeding off each other's energy. One added, "Bet he couldn't even tell you what basic training smells like." Another snorted, "Never seen a battlefield, that's for sure." The table felt smaller now. The corner that once gave Marcus quiet now boxed him in. But he didn't flinch. He didn't even move. He just looked at them one by one, his eyes calm, his voice even. "I don't need to prove anything to you." That hit different. The laughter faded just for a second. The lead biker clenched his jaw. His pride wasn't going to let him back down. He leaned it again, voice lower, tighter. "You think you belong in here, wearing that, sitting like you earned it." The words weren't shouted, but they cut through the room like a knife. The jukebox kept playing, but nobody was listening anymore. Even the bartender had stopped moving. All eyes were on that table now. The room was holding its breath. Marcus sat still, jaw set, ready not for a fight, but for whatever came next. The pressure was building, and it was only a matter of time before someone pushed too far. It all happened fast, but not in a messy way. The biker finally snapped. Maybe it was Marcus's calm that got under his skin, or maybe he just needed to feel bigger than he was. He reached forward and grabbed at Marcus's shirt like he was trying to drag him up or prove some kind of point. But Marcus didn't freeze. He didn't panic. His body moved like it already knew what to do. In one quick motion, he stood, twisted the man's arm, and had him face down against the edge of the table before most people even realized what was happening. The biker let out a short, pained grunt, more shocked than hurt. The whole room went still. You could hear the jukebox skip a note. Chairs stopped moving. Glasses were midair, untouched. The other bikers stood frozen in place, unsure if they should jump in or stay back. Nobody had expected Marcus to move like that smooth, sharp, and controlled. No yelling, no wild punches, just calm, practiced steps that made it clear he wasn't someone you wanted to push. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his voice low but clear. "I told you not to start anything." He didn't need to shout. The room was already quiet. The biker squirmed under his grip, but Marcus held firm, not hurting him more than he needed to. Just enough to end it. Everyone watching could see the shift. The guy who had been loud and sure of himself minutes earlier now looked small and stuck. One of the other bikers finally stepped forward, hands raised halfway like he wasn't sure what to do with them. "Hey, man," he said, his voice shakier than expected. "Just let him go." He didn't mean anything by it. Marcus didn't even look at him. "He came at me. You all saw it." His voice didn't crack. He wasn't angry, just stating facts. A few people in the bar nodded quietly. They had seen the whole thing. They knew who started it. Behind the counter, the bartender set down the glass he'd been holding and reached slowly for the phone, just in case. The room was still holding its breath, but now it was out of respect more than fear. Marcus let the man go with a light shove, not rough, but enough to make it clear he wasn't scared. The biker stumbled back, face red, pride bruised more than anything else. He turned with a scowl, eyes burning, but he didn't try again. He wouldn't. Not after that. The front door swung open again, this time with purpose. The police officers stepped inside, one tall, built like a linebacker with a clean haircut and a steady stare, and the other a woman with sharp eyes and a calm face that didn't miss a thing. The flashing lights from their car painted red and blue across the bar walls. Everyone turned toward them, quiet, waiting. The tension hadn't left yet, just shifted to a new kind. The tall officer spoke first, his voice firm, but even. "We got a call about a fight." He looked around, then let his eyes land on the group of bikers. Before anyone else could speak, the man Marcus had pinned stepped forward, still rubbing his wrist like it hurt more than his pride. He pointed right at Marcus and said, "That guy attacked me. He's wearing a fake uniform too. He's not a real soldier." The room didn't move. Marcus stayed by his table, hands relaxed at his sides, his face the same steady calm he'd had all night. The woman officer looked at him. "Is that true?" she asked. Marcus shook his head once, slow and clear. "No, ma'am," he said. "They came at me. I defended myself. That's all." His words were simple, but something in his voice made people want to believe him. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. The female officer looked around the bar. "Did anyone see what happened?" she asked, not loud, but firm, enough to demand a real answer. For a moment, there was silence. Then the bartender cleared his throat and stepped forward. "I saw it," he said. "The guy with the beard swung first. The soldier just reacted. Wasn't looking for a fight." A few nods followed. One man near the jukebox added, "Yeah, that's what happened. It wasn't his fault." The male officer turned back to Marcus. "You got any proof of your service?" he asked. Marcus nodded toward the bag sitting by his chair. "It's in there. Uniform, ID, everything." The officer picked it up and opened it. Inside was a neatly folded set of clothes, the kind only someone who actually wore them would know how to pack. Patches, name tag, rank. The officer checked, glanced at his partner, and gave a small nod. "It checks out," he said. The biker didn't like that. His face twisted, and he growled. He could have faked all that, but this time, the woman officer's voice cut through him sharp. "That's enough. You're lucky he's not pressing charges." And with that, the room seemed to breathe again. The truth was out. Marcus had nothing to prove, but still, somehow, he had proven everything. After the officers left and the flashing lights outside faded, the bar slowly began to return to its usual rhythm. But it wasn't quite the same. The noise came back, in small pieces, a glass clinking, a chair sliding, a quiet sigh. People started talking again, but their voices were lower, and their glances kept drifting back to Marcus. He hadn't moved much, still at the same table, same glass of water in front of him, still quiet. The only thing that had changed was the weight in the room. It had shifted. Now, instead of doubt or tension, there was something else, something Closer to respect. The bikers were gone, though their presence still lingered like a bad smell that takes time to clear. A few regulars nodded toward Marcus now, nothing dramatic, just small, honest signs that they'd seen what happened and knew where they stood. The bartender, who had barely said a word all night, finally walked over and placed a fresh glass of water on the table. "On the house," he said, then gave a small nod and walked away. That was enough. Marcus didn't need more. He sat back in his chair and let out a breath he didn't even realize he'd been holding, not because he was scared, but because even when you're trained to stay calm, moments like that still stay with you. Not the shove, not the pin to the table, but the way people looked at you before they knew the truth. The way silence can sometimes feel like a second kind of judgment. But tonight, he had stayed true to himself. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't lost control. He had done what he always did, stood his ground with steady hands and a clear head. It shouldn't have to be that way, but sometimes it is, and tonight, at least, the truth had been louder than the noise. He looked around the room one more time. It was settling again, back to its slow-moving pace. But Marcus knew something had changed, not just for the people who had watched, but for him too. Not every battle needs a headline. Some of them happen in small, quiet places where the only thing at stake is your dignity. And sometimes, holding on to that is the hardest part. It was a few days later, and the sun was starting to dip low over the trees when Marcus heard the sound of tires rolling onto his gravel driveway. He was out front, leaning under the hood of his old pickup truck, trying to fix a stubborn rattle that had been bugging him since he got back. At first, he didn't look up. People turned around in his driveway, sometimes by mistake, but the engine cut off and footsteps followed. That's when he straightened up and wiped his hands on a rag, turning to see who it was. The man standing there was one of the bikers from the bar, the thinner guy with the nervous eyes who had mostly stayed quiet during the whole thing. His jacket hung loose off his frame, and he held his helmet in both hands like he didn't quite know what to do with them. He stopped a few feet from Marcus, not too close, like he was worried about crossing a line. For a second, neither of them said anything. Just the sound of bugs in the trees and the soft ticking of Marcus's truck cooling down. "You're Marcus, right?" the man asked, his voice low. Marcus nodded, waiting. The guy cleared his throat, eyes on the ground. I came by to say sorry for what happened at the bar." He glanced up, clearly unsure if he should keep going. "I didn't stop it. I should have. I knew Hank was out of line, but I just stood there." Marcus didn't say much. He didn't nod, didn't shake his head. He just listened. The man took a breath and kept going. "I've been thinking about it since that night. The way you handled it. You didn't swing first. You didn't yell. Nothing. You just stood your ground, and I realized I don't want to be the kind of guy who stays quiet when something wrong's happening." Still, Marcus didn't speak right away. He looked at the man, trying to decide if he meant it, and after a long pause, he finally said, "Why'd you really come here?" The man shifted, a little uncomfortable, but honest. "Because I needed to. Because that night's been stuck in my head, and maybe it's not enough, but I just wanted to tell you to your face I'm sorry, and thank you." Marcus looked down at the rag in his hands, then back at the man. "It doesn't change what happened," he said, voice even. "What is something?" The man gave a small nod, like even that meant more than he expected. He stepped back, climbed onto his bike, and started it up. As he rode off down the road, Marcus stood there for a while, watching the dust settle. The moment was small, but real, and maybe that was enough for now.